Welcome to Satsang. Such a joy and a blessing and a gift to be together. If freedom is simply being able to do what you want, are animals freer than humans? It's a good question. I'll repeat it. If freedom is simply being able to do what you want, are animals freer than humans? Well, that's not what we mean when we talk about moksha. Moksha is liberation. It's freedom. But it's not freedom as in, I don't have to listen to anybody, whatever I want, I can do it. That's not the freedom that we're talking about. If you take the question and you take the idea of being able to do anything you want, well, how do we even know what we want? I mean, animals, what makes them do what they do? Instinct. They're not sitting there going, let's see, what do I feel like doing today? They're not sitting there saying, what's a better option, option A or option B? They're going purely by instinct. And that instinct is simply survival. What's the best food to eat? What's the best way to mate so that they can propagate? And what's the best way to protect themselves so they can keep living? It's not about what they want to do. It's about what they are programmed to do. Which is why they all seem to do the same things. It's why, unless it's a pet you've brought into the house who you've really kind of turned into being a smaller human being, unless it's that type of an animal, it's why you also don't see people talk too much about individual animals' personalities. They're all doing that which is their instinct to do. When we talk about moksha, freedom, this is freedom beyond what I want. Maybe the tongue is saying, I want a cheeseburger. But the mind, the heart, the intellect says, no. A, it's bad for my body. B, it's bad for the animals. C, it's bad for the planet and the environment. D, it goes against every aspect of non-violence and compassion that I believe in. And so we actually aren't slaves to the desires. Having freedom is actually the opposite of being a slave to your desire. If the mind, if the tongue says hamburger, or the, desire part of the mind says hamburger, and we do it, that means we're not free. That means we're stuck. Then we become one of those people who say things like, well, I didn't want to, but I couldn't control myself. Didn't want to do that, but, it happened. Then we become one of those who are really not free. We say things we don't mean. We do things that we wish later that we hadn't done. we act as slaves to desires, to the senses. Moksha, freedom, is actually being the exact opposite of being a slave to your desires. It's the opposite of just doing whatever in the moment that spontaneous desire is. Because I'm free from the desire. So I'm able to say, well, maybe the tongue or some pleasure center of my brain says cheeseburger and french fries, but all of the rest of me says no. I'm eating sattvic food. I'm eating yogic food. I'm eating dharmic food. I've committed to living in ahimsa, in non-violence, in dharma. And so we make that choice. That's freedom. Because it means I'm not stuck. I'm not just a reaction to a stimulus. And that's actually where our consciousness comes in. And that's what makes, from a spiritual perspective, humans higher than animals. Is that we actually have the ability to be conscious, to say, well, there's an instinct to kill that person because they invaded my territory. Where the animal nature in us literally is ready to physically pounce on them. How dare they? I'll show them. Whether it's my home, my physical property, whether it's in my space at work, wherever we feel invaded, that animal instinct in us is always ready to pounce. How dare you? I'll kill them. But the spiritual being in us says, Cello, it's okay. It's okay. Tika, let them take credit for the work. Who cares? God knows who really did it. What do we have to show? It's okay. Have some compassion for them. Channel the peace within you. From your soul, recognize their soul, right? That's what our spiritual practice teaches us. If we're just living in instinct or desire, we're going to pounce on people. So being free is being able to look at a desire, look at an instinct, and then very consciously choose to do it, not to do it, to eat it, not to eat it, to say it, not to say it. To really make choices in total alignment with our truth and our deepest consciousness. So that's freedom. Not just, I'm king of the jungle so I can do whatever I want. It's never about be as free as a lion. It's be free from those lion tendencies or tiger tendencies within yourself. That's the freedom. Questions? Any questions that anyone here might have? Yes.
नमस्ते। हम लाइफ में कोई भी चीज़ करते हैं तो कुछ देर बाद उस चीज़ से बोर हो जाते हैं। तो लाइफ में थॉट्स की स्टेबिलिटी कैसे लाएं? थॉट्स की, इच्छाओं की, डिज़ायर्स की, क्योंकि कोई भी डिज़ायर अपन करते हैं एक टाइम के लिए, वो कुछ टाइम के बाद अपने को मिल जाती है, तो मतलब वो नहीं रहती, स्टेबिलिटी नहीं रहती थॉट्स की भी, डिज़ायर्स की भी। तो क्या सेटिस्फैक्शन पॉइंट कहाँ पे मिलता है?
The real satisfaction comes when we are free of the desires. Yes, the thoughts keep coming. The desires keep coming. The practice of meditation, the point of it, is to experience the space between the thoughts. Because with each thought, it's telling me something about myself which is not true. So maybe my thought says, I am angry. Or maybe my thought says, I am sad. Maybe my thought says, I'm happy. Whatever it is, it's a very temporary statement of simply the current electrical and chemical patterns happening in my brain. Call them sad, call them angry, call them happy, call them tired, call them whatever you want to call them. It's very temporary. Maybe my thought is saying, I'm hungry. Maybe my thought is saying, I'm very nervous about the conversation I have to have with my boss at work. Maybe my thought is saying, I'm very upset about the conversation that I had with my boss at work. Whatever that thought is saying, it's putting you in a box. It's telling you who you are, which isn't actually who you are. You're not the anger. You're not the pain. You're not the excitement. You're not the stress. You're not the employee having a conversation with the boss. You are soul. You are spirit. You are consciousness. You are divinity. But in order to really know that, not just because I can train my thought to say that, but to really know that, I have to actually experience a place where there are no thoughts. Because the thoughts are me talking about myself, to myself. There's always a distance. The thoughts are commentating, looking at something, giving a commentary, right? If you listen to your mind, that's all it's doing. It's like those non-stop, really annoying sports commentators, right? Okay, now he's dribbling the ball. Now he's at the 5-yard line. Now he's at the 3-yard line. Is he going to make it? What do you think, Bob? You think he's going to make it? I don't think he's going to make it. He's not that tall of a guy. Not that good. You think, my God, what a headache I have listening to this man, right? But that's actually what happens in our own minds. This constant commentator. Constantly telling us what we're doing, what's happening, how good we are at it, what the next step is going to be like. Are we up to the task? Are we not? Who to watch out for? Who's the enemy? Who's better than we are? And it always keeps us an arm's length away from the real self. Because as long as I'm looking at something, describing something, commentating on it, comparing it, judging it, I'm separate from it. And so the only way to actually experience that truth of the self is in the space between the thoughts. And so as we meditate, we develop the ability to become quiet. And as we become quiet, we find space between thoughts. And in that space, experience arises, grace arises. And then we're able to really know. We may not be able to put words on it, but we're able to feel it and to know. And in terms of desire, like the idea is to become free of thought, in the same way the idea is to become free of desire. It's not that satisfaction comes from fulfilling it. As you say, we fulfill one thing, then another comes. Here's the deep truth. The temporary joy that you get when you fulfill a desire has nothing nothing to do with what you've gotten. Nothing to do with the actual object of your desire. But it has everything to do with temporarily being free of desire. So if I'm desiring a glass of water, and all my mind is thinking is, oh my God, I need water so badly. I want water so badly. I want water so badly. So I finally get the water. And now, as I drink the water, the joy that I get is not so much from the water itself, although water is wonderful, but actually the real joy that I get is that in that moment that I'm drinking, I'm no longer desiring water. I've become free for that moment of my desire. And that freedom from the desire is actually what brings us the joy. And that's why we keep running after fulfilling desires, because each one, as we fulfill it temporarily, we feel, yes. But then very, very quickly, as you say, that is no longer there. Because now we're desiring something else. And this is why the only way to have that permanent experience, that permanent joy, is to teach ourselves to become free of desire. Not by pushing it away, not by denial or repression, but simply by filling ourselves with something that is more joyful, more pleasing than any object of our desire. Whatever we desire, money, houses, cars, pizza, ice cream, enjoyment, sensual pleasures. What we find in our spiritual practice is a sense of joy inside. An experience inside that is so pleasing that it's more pleasurable than getting any of those things. And so I'm no longer prepared to let go of the internal experience of joy in order to start longing for something else. There's nothing you can hold out in front of me and say, if you only had this, you'd be happy, that would start me craving for it. Because I know craving. And I know that craving pulls you off center. And I know that while I'm craving, I'm no longer experiencing joy. And so in order for me to start wanting to get what you're trying to convince me is going to bring me joy, what I know is, I don't want to start craving. Because in the moment, I'm filled with such joy. Why would I want to leave that behind for what I know is going to be misery? Because craving is misery. Craving is this constant sense of, I don't have what I need. I don't have what I want. I'm empty. I need something. Why would I want to throw away what I have, which is so full, for absolutely sure misery, with the idea that at the end of that misery I might find something to bring me joy, when I actually have joy right now? It's like that great story of the fisherman in the village who's sitting under a tree in the afternoon. He's taking a nap. And a man comes up and plops down next to him and says, "Hi, I'm visiting here in this sweet little fishing village on the ocean. What do you do?" The fisherman says, "I'm a fisherman." And the man is very well dressed, and you can tell he's kind of a businessman. And he says to the fisherman, well, if you're a fisherman, why are you napping under a tree? And the fisherman says, well, I went out in the morning. I caught the fish that I need for the day, brought them home. We had lunch, spent some time with the family. Now I'm having a nap under the tree. And the man says, no, 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 that is not how you do things. Trust me, I'm a businessman. Come from the city. Here's what you do. You do not stop fishing at lunch. You keep fishing all day. You bring in way more than you need. Then you sell the rest of them, and you get the money. And the fisherman says, okay, then what? And the man says, well, then with that money, you buy more fishing boats. And with those more fishing boats, you can have more boats go out at once. They catch more fish. Then you get more money. And the man says, okay, then what? He says, well, with that money, then you can hire a whole team of people to take these fishing boats out. And the man says, okay, and then? And the man says, that is the best part. See, once you've got all these boats and you've hired all of these great people to run your stuff, then you don't have to worry. Then you just, if you like, you go out for a little while in the morning, you have a beautiful lunch with your family, you can nap under a tree in the afternoon and enjoy your life. And the fisherman says, but wait, that's what I'm doing now. And you realize the whole chakkar de jisme hum parte hain, to get what we're really looking for, which is happiness. But how we go in this circle thinking, first I've got to get the money, then I have to get big, then I get this, then I get that, then I get this, then eventually I will be able to spend time with my family, nap under a tree in the afternoon, and have a meaningful life. But if we actually stopped and we said, okay, how much of what I'm doing in the office, all those extra hours that I'm clocking because I want more money, I want the overtime, or because I want to go up, because if I put in 100 hours a week, maybe I'll make vice president of the company one day. And we say, well, wait, what's my ultimate goal? It's the ultimate goal that eventually from vice president I become president, and then I can delegate the work to somebody else so that I can have lunch with my family and nap under a tree in the afternoon. Well, what if I decided that I didn't actually need to get there via becoming vice president of the company? What if I said right here, right now, if I simply shifted what my aims and objectives were of my life, what my goals were, what my desires were, I could actually have that happiness that I'm looking for right here, right now. And so we become desireless, not through a sense of pushing the desires away, but through very clear introspection, contemplation, gyan, that says, what am I running after? And why am I running? What do I want? And by the way, there's no right answers. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what you should want, but simply to encourage you to become conscious of what it is on the deepest level you really do want, And might there be a somewhat shorter way to get there than spending the next several decades of your life forsaking everything that matters to you, in order that decades later you might finally be able to come back to it? Right? It seems a little backwards. But this is what happens with desires. So that's where the goal is, to become desire-free. Wealth is not about how much you have. It's about how you feel about how much you have. If you've got billions, but you wish you had more, you're poor. Because your felt sense experience is, I don't have enough. If you're hand to mouth, but you are living in an experience of whatever you need, it's there. An internal experience of abundance. You want to share, you want to feed others. You're rich. Because inside you feel full. And that's all about our own internal desire management, you could say. Other questions? Yes.
Thank you. But this is the question not about desires. Is that okay?
That's okay. Any
Okay.
question, of
Okay.
course, of course.
So my question is about making choices. Because people usually say that you make a choice from your heart, like what it's, how do you react, how do your heart responds to that, to this or that option, or to this or that person. And what if your heart opens to all of these options? And how to choose to make a right choice and to be confident in that and not to feel sorry about the made choice. Thank you.
Choices and decisions, how do we know? Well, it's important to realize that there isn't always, or even frequently, one right decision. We make decisions in our lives as though there's one right answer and everything else is wrong. And so there's a lot of tension and stress. My God, what if I make the wrong decision? Well, what do you mean by wrong? Wrong by whose standards? There isn't any wrong decision that's made consciously. And you've spoken about opening your heart, really being present with them. So we're not talking about an instinctive, for example, you could say, if someone insults me, and without thinking, unconsciously, I insult them back, or I slap them, or I slam a door in their face, you could say, that wasn't such a good decision. But it wasn't a decision that I made with an open heart. It was a decision that I made with a very closed heart, a closed mind even, a pure animal instinct impulse in me that led me to that decision, wrong decision. The first thing with decisions is we always have to be conscious, anchored, grounded, with our heart open. But you say, well, okay, so what if we are anchored, grounded, heart is open? And they all seem like good decisions. Well, there may not be a wrong decision. You may have a beautiful situation in which you've got 4 or 5 beautiful options. And they're going to take you 4 or 5 different places. But nothing's going to be wrong. It's all about what you do with whatever decision you've made. The question is not so much the decision itself, but how am I going to be after I make that decision? And if you're going to simply sit there and repent and feel horrible because you wished you'd made a different decision, then you can turn even a good decision into a bad one because you've paralyzed yourself. You've got 4 different doors and walls to walk through. You choose a door, you walk through it. But if upon walking through it you decide, oh, I wish I hadn't, and you just sit down and cry, well, you're never going to be able to experience what would it be like if you actually walk down the path that that door opened to. Because you're just standing in the doorway screaming. So, with your open heart, make the decision that is the most in alignment with your values, your ethics, the decision that is most in alignment with however you understand your dharma here on earth, the decision that's most in alignment with a ripple impact of good in the world. And if they all have that, then just close your eyes and choose one. But once you choose it, walk it fully. Because you don't want to be just one of those people standing in a doorway forever. So once you've made that decision, stick with it. Walk through. See what this path has to offer. Your open heart made you choose that. So now walk through it. And who knows, other doors will open from that path. But a lot of us get paralyzed, not making decisions, thinking that something's going to be wrong. It's never wrong if we've made a decision clearly, consciously. We can turn beautiful decisions into horrible situations based on how we act in them. And we can turn what otherwise would have been not very good situations into beautiful situations based on how we act in them. And so just make your decision and then focus your energy and your attention on how you are going to act and be in that situation now, once you've made the decision. And be grateful to the universe for so many beautiful possibilities. And then you have to just choose something and go. I have a situation like this on a much more superficial level, but here in the ashram, in 26 years, nobody has ever said to me, what would you like for dinner? Or lunch or breakfast. The most I get asked is, what time would you like it? But it's breakfast time, and he brings a plate full of breakfast. It's dinner time, and he brings a plate full of dinner. Nobody has ever said, what would you like? And when I travel in the world, most of the time I'm staying in people's homes, and in the same way, they're making food and putting it in front of you. When I'm in Los Angeles, where I'm from, if I'm there with my parents, I will frequently cook, or I'll go to the grocery if I'm the only one eating, if they're not eating, I'll sometimes just go to the local health food store and find something that's easy to get, or there's a beautiful organic all organic restaurant a couple blocks from their house where sometimes I'll go and get something. And it always gives me this spinning head because suddenly there's all these choices. And so I know this experience. You know, if I'm traveling at a conference somewhere, if it's an interreligious event or a United Nations thing, frequently there's only one vegan option. So again, I don't have a choice, right? The non-vegetarians tend to have lots of choices. The vegetarians, but not vegans, may have a few, but there tends to be only, at best, one vegan option. But then in LA, suddenly there's, a health food store full of options, or a restaurant full of things, all of which are organic, all of which are vegan. And you do really have to just say, okay, that. Right? I mean, they all look good. They're all healthy. They're all good for you. They're good for the planet. And I do find myself sometimes just going, okay, or I'll say to the waiter, do me a favor, just bring me something. Because you can't choose. And you may end up, even though I realize that the decisions that you're making are probably bigger than what to have for dinner, if they're all good choices, and they're all in alignment with your heart and your values and your ethics, just enjoy the beautiful moment and choose whatever your gaze falls upon. Yeah. Beautiful. Yes, we'll take this as the last question.
I just want to ask, how to become easygoing in life. Easygoing means living to the fullest, ignoring the small things that keep us entangled, and we are not able to, we are so much overtied with our responsibilities that we ignore the small things that give us happiness, and the responsibilities we start taking it as a burden. So how do we manage in life that we don't take the responsibilities as a burden, and we fulfill them with our whole integrity, and also at the same time enjoy our life?
Beautiful. Pujya Swamiji has a very beautiful saying, which is, expectation is the mother of frustration, and acceptance is the mother of peace and joy. We feel burdened and stressed and miserable when we have an expectation that is not being fulfilled. So for example, as you talk about our responsibilities, well, they feel like burdens when there's an expectation that I will get rewarded from doing this. If it's something at work, we would like acknowledgement, maybe a bonus, maybe a raise, maybe some kind of appreciation. If it's at home, maybe we just want to be seen, appreciated, loved. And there's nothing wrong with that. So we have these expectations that which I'm doing is going to give me something in exchange. Or we have an expectation that we're going to do our part and therefore others will also do their part. And when any of these expectations is not fulfilled, suddenly that work becomes a major burden and source of frustration. Because what I wanted from this, I am not getting. Now, in a workplace, you certainly have a right to be acknowledged for work that you do, assuming that you're doing it just to be able to put bread on your table, right? I mean, if they're having you do things, there should be an acknowledgement of what you do. There should be some sense of reciprocation for the work that you put in, whether as a bonus or a raise or as some promotion or whatever it may be. But the real dilemma comes in our personal life. Because unfortunately, there's no guarantees in life that just because I've made a beautiful dinner, they're going to eat it with love and appreciate me. Or just because I have done this for my loved ones, that they are then going to treat me with respect and care and love. But we keep expecting and we keep expecting. And when we don't get it, we are frustrated and it feels like a burden. And that's where you have to shift from expecting the reward to come from those people to realizing that the reward comes within yourself. Channel your inner Sadhvi. That you're sweeping, you're cooking, because God is coming. Those who are walking on your swept floor before God arrives, doesn't matter. They appreciate it, they don't appreciate it, doesn't matter. Those who are eating your food before God arrives, they appreciate it, great. They don't appreciate it, no problem. Because you're doing it for God. And so you have to just shift your internal focus of who am I doing this for? And shift it from those who are not responding how you would like, to realizing, okay, fine, I'm doing this for God. God has put me on this earth, in this form, with this dharma, with these responsibilities, because God is perfect. And therefore, if God wants me to sweep this floor, it means because God is going to come and walk on it. And so just channel that inner Sadhvi. Baki log jo kehte hai kehne do. Appreciate you, wonderful. Don't appreciate you, no problem. But you do those responsibilities because you're doing them for God. But you may also be able to minimize them. There are things that we do that we don't actually have to do. And what you should ask yourself, with all of these responsibilities that feel like burdens, how many of them really have to be done? Like, how many are actually my responsibility to my family, to my samaj, to myself? And how many are the things that I do just because samne wale dekh rahe hai, and the neighbors should be happy and a little bit jealous, and how much of what we do is just to keep up appearances in society and in the community? Because that's a very tiresome job. And it's never-ending work. Because somebody is always keeping a better house, throwing a better party, sending their kids to a better school, having a more lavish wedding, looking better in nicer clothes. And so if that's become your sense of responsibility, you will be forever frustrated. So also really look at what are those responsibilities and how many are actual, like, dharmic responsibilities. And how many are this indoctrination by our culture that we have to look better than the neighbors, or do better than the neighbors, or, put on this show. Who are you living for? I've never heard of anybody on their deathbed who said, God, I wish the neighbors were more jealous. Who cares? Really figure out, what are my priorities? Who are those to whom I really am responsible? And then do those with love. You're serving God through your family members. But the rest, figure out really what needs to be done. And even within the family. One of the things that I always say is when we talk about serving our loved ones, that means serving their soul. It doesn't mean serving their ego. And a lot of times we get bullied into doing things because someone has an agenda. And so they bully us into doing something that we don't really want to do, that does take a lot of time and energy and effort. And it's not actually for them on any kind of a deep level. It's just for their ego self, for an agenda that they've got to make the neighbors jealous. Or an agenda that they've got about a place in society. And so our duty, our dharma to our loved ones is to see the divine in them and to serve the divine in them. But not necessarily to allow ourselves to be pushed and bullied into doing things that are not in alignment with our values, our ethics, our priorities, just because they're seeing the world in a different way or happen to have a different agenda. So you also have to be able to figure out what are the things you can say no to. And that doesn't make you less of a person. It's not weak to say no. It's strong to say no. Because if you want to say yes to your own self, that capital S self, you have to be prepared to say no sometimes to other people. And you do it with love and you do it with humility. But you do it because you've got something else you need to say yes to. So also look at those when you're looking at what really are my responsibilities. What really is my dharma here? My duty here? To others and to myself. And you're going to find that the more you let go of the expectations, that you become very easygoing. Those expectations are what keep us really stuck. When you let go of them, you realize what I'm doing, that's my karmic journey. How someone else responds to it is their karmic journey. I do it with love, with duty, with care. That's my karmic journey. They respond with love, or they respond by ignoring me or insulting me. Either way, that's their karmic package. It's not mine. So just stay true to yours. And realize anyway you're doing it for God. Just keep channeling Shabari. Beautiful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evenings, everyone. A beautiful day to our family joining us from all over the world. And so much love to you all.